Thank you very much. I hope people can hear me, and I also do hope that you can see my slides, which I'm going to just share in a moment. Thank you. I can see some audience there. So if you can hear me and see me, can people raise their hands? A few people? Lovely. Thank you very much. First of all, I apologize that I'm not there in person. I had to go overseas for something urgent, and NASCOM very kindly let me do this virtually. So I apologize for that. The good news is I will not take more than 20, maximum 25 minutes, since I have to run for something for which I came for here. What I'm going to talk about is, well, surprise, surprise, about generative AI. But what I would focus on is work. And what we, I think, used to call the future of work, which has rapidly become the present now. Um, so I will not talk more about myself. I think I was introduced. I do want to say one thing relevant, that I spend a lot of time in Cambridge in the UK, and one of the things I'm doing there is doing my second master's in my old age in AI and ethics and society. And so you'll see some of that come in to the conversation that we are doing right now. We know that the last few months has been a very accelerated one from a technology, and specifically from an AI, and more specifically from a generative AI standpoint. Alexander Wong puts it very nicely in her tweet. She says that there are decades where nothing happens sometimes in tech, and then weeks where decades happen. And I think we have been kind of going through those weeks, as is portrayed in this very famous chart on the right, about the poster boy of generative AI, which is ChatGPT, taking the world by storm. Hundreds of millions of users. We don't know how many there are. And then obviously now there are competitors to ChatGPT within the generative AI space, which pretty much we see something new happening every morning. Um, One of the first things which ChatGPT and generative AI impacted really was human creativity. And this was in a little uh, disconcerting for us human beings, because most of us think that what really separates us from machines or non human agents is actually creativity, the way to think. The speaker before was talking about the left brain and the right brain, and computers and tech is super good at left brain, but we were supposed to be the masters of the right brain. But then the interesting bit here is that this particular technology actually started hitting the right brain first, more than the left brain. It cannot still solve complex mathematical problems, but it can do wonders if you want to make pictures by Stable Diffusion or DALI, or even better models that are out there right now. Whether we want to make music by putting in text, which could be as outlandish as saying that, create something which has these 10 instruments in the style of R.D. Burman with the lyrics written by Queen, and you're going to get something. Gaming, and not just chess or Go, but complex gaming. Cicero, for example, by Meta, plays the game of diplomacy, where actually countries negotiate with each other over territory, over war, over peace, and Cicero does a great job. Uh, Obviously, talking, debating, writing is something which generative AI has mastered. This is particularly poignant for me because, when I wrote my first book, which was about 3.5 years back, and this was called The Tech Whisperer, I had one chapter in the book, which was how I marketed the book, which was a chapter on AI written by an AI. It took me 7 months to build together a hack, an NLP, a natural language programming hack, along with a firm called Findability Sciences. And it produced a very substandard level of text. And I actually used that chapter to make a point that the chapter written on AI by a human being, which was me, right before that, was so much better than the chapter written by AI. Well, frankly, now it would take me 70 seconds, and the chapter written by ChatGPT or one of its brothers or sisters would be much better, probably, or as good as the chapter written by me. I do, as I kind of move towards work, I do want to show you two videos. Again, very possible that you might have seen them. For those who have, it might be a repeat viewing, so I'm sorry about that. The video on the left, which I will play first, is something called Adobe Firefly, and it's a foundation model built on Photoshop, which just got released about a week or so back, and it's absolutely astounding. I just hope you can see the video and hear the audio here, but I'm going to just take a chance and play. So, for the sake of time, I'm going to stop. But what you're seeing here is something which a graphic designer would ordinarily be taking tens of hours, if not more, and good graphic designers. And now, using generative AI on existing Photoshop images, almost like augmented reality in some sense. Someone who knows this, can actually create amazing images. And these images actually are all copyrighted. They're all mostly from Getty Images, so you're not violating any law, etc. And that is one amazing thing which we saw coming now. And then the second thing I want to show you is the video on the right, which is about a couple of months old, maybe more, maybe 3 months old. This was during the launch of GPT-4 by OpenAI. And we see one of the co-founders doing something which still astounds me after seeing it so many times since those last 3 months. I'm going to play this quickly and then kind of describe what it is actually doing, because sometimes it's not very clear. But here goes.
A nice hand-drawn mock-up of a joke website. Definitely worthy of being put up on my refrigerator. So I'm just going to take out my phone, take a photo of this mock-up. And here we go. And now we wait. And so we can actually take now this output. So literally we just said to output the HTML from that picture. And here we go. Actual working JavaScript, filled in the jokes. For comparison, this was the original.
So what you saw here was Brockman actually wrote something saying, I want to build my joke website on dad jokes. And then he kind of fed it to GPT-4, told GPT to convert it into code. HTML code came out. He copy-pasted the HTML code, and there was this rudimentary website created in a few seconds. This is a live demo with working JavaScript, etc. Well, this is not the perfect website, but you can imagine that amount of time it would take web designers, website developers to create something like this gets done in seconds. And there you've already started seeing how this is going to influence work. So look, there are lots of early business applications of generative AI, of GPTs and Bard, etc. Some of them, like image generation, copywriting, programming, have actually crossed $100 million in revenue, just that businesses using these products. Host of companies have started using this. There are real life instances where this Bangalore company, for example, an investing company, basically saw that the productivity of its workers had gone up manifold, and they've decided to give them the Chat GPT Plus, which is GPT-4. Air India talked about using it to train pilots, not to fly the planes yet, but to train pilots. And there are multiple instances, which I'm sure you read in the newspapers, about how a bunch of industries across countries have started using this. But what I want to focus on in the next 10 to 15 minutes is that all those industries is fine, but what about work? Work, by the way, depending on how you measure it, is a several $trillion industry in itself. Large companies like Microsoft have come up, and most of their revenues come from actually automating work. And so work is a massive industry. We don't think of it as an industry many times, but I think the impact of generative AI on this multi-trillion-dollar industry is actually immense, and we have already started seeing some of it, and we will see more of it. Well, talking of Microsoft, this was a report which Work Labs from Microsoft released fairly recently. In fact, in Bangalore, I was there during when they were talking about it, and it's an interesting report. But what it says is that about more than half our time, close to 60%, is in work for white collar work, is actually spent in communicating. Meetings, emails, chats, etc. And 40%, the rest of it, is spent actually in creation. Creating documents, creating presentations, creating sales pitches, etc. And most workers basically want to spend more time on creation and less on communication. And this is where Microsoft's assertion is that some of the tools that they are bringing in as they are layering GPT and GPT-4, etc., on their productivity suite of Office 365, this is where it will kind of start moving more towards creation, less towards communication. Let me unpack this by this wonderful graphic that I discovered. What this says is that work, again, white collar work, is really three things. What you do in office. You act as something. You act as a marketer or a therapist or a journalist or an entrepreneur or a CEO or a manager. You create something. You create, while you're working, you create a headline or an analysis or an ad copy or an email or code or a headline, depending on what you're acting as. And then you show as. So you show what you have created either as code or as graphs or as a table or as a summary or as a PDF or a Word or a spreadsheet or something. Now, what I do believe is that with generative AI, the show as part actually will pretty much go away. Microsoft has unveiled something called the Copilot, 365 Copilot, where if you create a Word document or a sales summary on a single text prompt command, it can actually, you can say that create a PowerPoint deck out of this, and it'll create a 20-slide deck. No, I want a 10-slide deck. Okay, 10 slide. I want this deck with humor in it, and humor will come in it. I want some graphics in it, graphics. So this number 3, I believe, will start going away. Number 2, in the creation part, is where generative AI will help us do this. So it will help us create recipes. You can actually take a picture of stuff inside your refrigerator, put it to GPT-4 and say that, okay, fine, build me a recipe out of this, and it will create a few recipes. So it'll help you do that. It'll help you create blog posts, summaries, etc. And therefore leave more time for the act as role, where there's much more of humanity. There's emotion, there's empathy, there's a collaboration, there's humor. There's when you look into each other's eyes. And so, this is what I believe is going to happen. And if you kind of start putting roles on this, you will see that how some of this has started happening already. The irony, and this is especially relevant given the audience that I'm talking to, is that generative AI would actually disrupt the creators of generative AI most, which is tech IT software. Kent Beck, one of those legendary software engineers who wrote Extreme Programming, had this wonderful tweet, which I quote often. And he says, I've been reluctant to try ChatGPT. Today I got over it. I understand why I was reluctant. And here comes the crux. He says the value of 90% of my skills just dropped to $0. But the leverage for the remaining 10% went up 1000x. I need to recalibrate. And all of us would actually need to recalibrate. The other thing happening in IT and software is that, we used to think that, like in our generation, when we grew up, English was the passport to success. Everyone had to learn English. And for our children, it became that coding or programming was the passport to success. So, we sent our kids to learn Python and R and whatever. But now, with all these generative AI programs, which can generate code from language, one of the things that I believe is that, yesterday coding is the new English, what we used to say. But today or tomorrow, English will become the new coding. So how you kind of work with these GitHub Copilot kind of programs, the kind of prompts you give will actually give the code that you want, like we saw in that website example. The last but one thing I want to talk about, which, is a question which if every time I was given $1 for the times that this question was asked to me, I would be on my way to becoming a millionaire right now. That what will ChatGPT do to jobs? And there are many answers to this, but I look upon this through four lenses. What will it do to jobs within work? Remember, work is different from jobs. It will certainly take away some jobs, and jobs which are low end, summarizing news, creating short form news, writing payroll software, etc., gone. I mean, there's this famous news report which came out where BuzzFeed laid off 12% of its staff, saying that now we will replace this with ChatGPT. BuzzFeed stock went up 100%, etc. And so there will be some jobs which will get taken away. Certain jobs ChatGPT Gen AI will not be able to take. And those are the jobs which are much more menial jobs. So if you're a farmer or a industrial worker, or you're building roads, or you're making a bridge, no GPT, no generative AI can do that yet, and possibly for a long time. Interestingly, there will be jobs which will get created. Every technology, if you go back in history, has created new jobs. We still don't know what those jobs are. I mean, some of them are emerging, like prompt engineers, AI ethicists. I'm doing AI and ethics, as I said, and certainly AI ethicists, AI regulators will be in great demand. In fact, as a joke, OpenAI actually released this ad for something called a kill switch engineer as a joke, basically saying that we just need someone to stand by the servers all day and unplug them if this thing turns on us. And we expect you to be patient, know how to unplug things. Bonus points if you can throw a bucket of water on the servers. Look, this is a joke, but basically newer and newer jobs will come up which we still don't know much about. But the most important thing I want to tell you is number 4, that ChatGPT generative AI actually doesn't take jobs, but it certainly impacts and takes tasks within jobs. And so more than anything else, it has the capacity to enhance most jobs. And so it's not AI which will replace you, but a person using AI who could. So someone who's a software programmer, if he or she uses a GitHub Copilot, produces far better code, much faster, then the threat is not from GPT-4. The threat is from the person who has actually learned it and therefore can do better stuff with it. Similarly for journalists, similarly for lawyers, similarly for most other professions, it's not AI which will replace you, but a person using AI who could. And I'm not saying this just rhetorically. While I was writing this, I got a tweet from Vishnu who said that yes, it is. We at his company are writing code 200% faster and shipping fast. And as I kind of did a Twitter conversation with him, I learned that they were actually using these tools, and they just started using it a few days back. So we're already seeing how this has kind of started making an impact. Goldman Sachs brought out a report recently, which fortunately seemed to agree with what I'm saying. They said that there'll be a lot of GDP uplift, etc. But they said 7% of jobs in the US, so this is US, will be taken away. 30% of jobs, nothing is going to happen, those farmers, etc. But 63% is where there will be an impact. And then it's up to us whether how we kind of take that impact positively and learn or not. India, by the way, is the country, according to them, which will be the least affected. So this is much more a developed country phenomenon rather than a developing country phenomenon. There are many such reports. This is one by Accenture, and it broadly says the same thing, that across different industries and across different job categories, there will be impact, but differently. And so, banking, insurance, software, etc., will have the highest impact. Natural resources, chemicals, lowest. Similarly, office administration support, sales, computer, mathematical will have, the highest impact. Things like farming, fishing, forestry, production, as I said, would have the lowest impact. So as we have kind of gone through this in double quick time, in GPT time, I wanted to kind of end, since both of us have deadlines, I wanted to end by talking about 5 things that I wanted to remember about generative AI overall and maybe the future of work in specific. First of all, number 1, that this is generative AI. Use it to generate. Please don't use it to search. For something like that, for something like search, there's Google, there's Bing. Use it to generate ideas, thoughts, copy, advertising, generate code, generate legal brief, generate essays, and then work on them to make it better. As Shan Puri said very nicely on Twitter, that Google is a search engine, ChatGPT is a thought engine. So use it to generate, not use it to search. As I said, it will not replace you. Person using it will across your companies. And so better be the person who's kind of the replacer rather than the replacee by actually embracing these tools and working with them. The horizontals like GPT-4, Bard, Llama, etc. are interesting, but the verticals, which we didn't get time to talk about today, hundreds and now soon thousands of verticals, industry-specific verticals, which are being built on top of them, are the ones which will be super useful. And each person, depending on which company they're working in, needs to keep an eye out for the new verticals coming in. I also believe that generative AI will be as transformative as search, email, social networking. Sundar Pichai says fire. I won't go that back, but certainly the internet, the iPhone, and it'll reshape big tech. It already has started reshaping big tech. As of 3 days back, big tech includes NVIDIA, which was never in the game, amongst the big techs before. And we'll see some more of this reshaping happening. And finally, a little outside the work topic, but this is my little equation where I say that GAI is not equal to AGI, which is that generative AI is not equal to artificial general intelligence. So we are still further away from that, but that's a different topic, which I'm sure we can discuss at a different time. Thank you very much. I again apologize that I could not be there. I hope that there were at least a couple of things that you got from this, which would be useful for you. If you do want to connect with me offline, that's my website. I live on Twitter. I live on LinkedIn. I keep away from Mr. Zuckerberg's properties, but you'll find me in these places. Thank you again, and I'll stop sharing and hand back over to the organizers. Thank you.
For more content on tech and leadership, subscribe to NASScom YouTube channel and press the bell icon to never miss an update.